Students, this is lesson U2A01c. In this lesson I am going to go over exercise U2A01c, the second half of exercise U2A01c. So let's take a look. So the task is for us to simplify these different expressions down. So let's take a look at how we can do that. If you look at here what we have is we have real numbers being added to imaginary numbers. And what we call these, okay, if ever we have a combination of real and imaginary numbers being added together, we refer to this as a complex number. Complex not because they're complicated, but because, well, they're conjoined with other things, okay? So when there are other things being paired up together, we call that a complex, right? So this, we have 8 plus 4i being added with negative 5 plus 7i, and just like any other simplification process, a way we want to combine like terms. So 8 and negative 5, those are real terms. I want to combine them together and make 3. I have 4i and 7i and combine them together to make 11i. Similarly, the next one here, I have negative 2 and 2. They cancel, leaving me with only the imaginary part. I get 12i. Next, I'm going to combine the real and the imaginary together. The real with the real and imaginary with the imaginary. So I'm left with negative 13, right? And then plus 8i. Alright, here is where things gets interesting. So I need to multiply these two complex numbers together. I have negative 3 minus 7i, that's a complex number, with 7 minus 2i, that's another complex number. In order for me to multiply this, okay, I have to do what we've been doing all along, okay? When we have two different terms, okay, that are being added or subtracted by one another, we have a binomial, okay, and we're multiplying them together. We have to perform this kind of multiplication. So when we multiply this out, we end up with negative 21 plus 6i minus 49i plus 14i squared. And we got to continue simplifying this, okay? Looking at this, I have negative 21 and then 6i and negative 49i. That makes negative 21 minus 43i. And then I have this business right here, this 14i squared. Now recall in the previous video, okay, I is equal to square root of negative 1. So if I square I, what will I end up with? I squared will then therefore equal to negative 1. So if that's the case, okay, that 14i squared becomes minus 14. Well, what will this all turn into then? This will all turn into negative 35 minus 43i. That is what the product will turn into, okay, another complex number. All right. And then the next part here, I have 7 minus 4i squared. This is a perfect square. I can multiply this by using structure. So this is 49 minus 56i, and then plus 16i squared, right? And I can then turn the 16i squared into knowing that I squared, it becomes negative 1. This is really 49 minus 56i minus 16. And this becomes 33 minus 56i. Alright. Next one here, I really can't multiply this with structure, so I'm forced to pretty much just to FOIL this. So this is negative 24, and then plus 32, and then plus 21i, and lastly minus 48, minus 28i squared. So again, I'm going to combine like terms, so I get negative 24, and 32 and 21 makes 53, so plus 53i. And the last term there, I squared is negative, and the coefficient, negative 28, is already negative, so I get plus 28. I add them together, okay, just the real parts here. I end up with 4 plus 53i. That's the product. All right, things are getting serious. All right, so I have negative 8i times negative 3 minus 8i. We just take this one step at a time. This is no different, okay? So negative 8i times negative 3 minus 8i, okay? So I'm just going to distribute this first. This is going to turn into 24i, positive 24i. And then negative and negative makes positive, so plus 64i squared. And this in return is multiplied by 3 plus 2i. I want to do a little bit of simplification in the first set of parentheses that I just created, okay? So that 64i squared becomes minus 64, right? So this is really negative 64 plus 24i times 3 plus 2i. And again, we're just going to FOIL this out one more time. So negative 64 times 3, what is that? That is 192, negative 192. Negative 64 times 2, that's minus 128i. And then I have 23 times 3, that's 72, so it's plus 72i. And lastly, I have 24i plus 2i squared, so plus 2i, so that's 48i squared, so it's plus 48i squared. And if we combine everything together now, okay, we get negative 192, negative 128i plus 72i. So what is that exactly? That is going to be 56. So it's going to be minus 56i. And the last term there becomes minus 48. And combining like terms, okay, negative 192 and negative 48, that will give me, what will that give me? Negative 240 minus 56i. That is the product of the three term products there. I am not going to do the last two just because the last two is it's no more challenging than question number 24. So I want to stop it right here.